I don't have right now, but I can send to you later. Whole thing.
Now, do you have, my last question, council's you do you have any officials higher than Mr. Nguyen Thang be involved in this project, and how they themselves are benefited from this project? Your name and
about this question, I'm not so sure about that. But you know, I got some document from you know, communist member in the Da Nang. They write a letter and ask Nguyen Thang about corruption. Then I have a letter from them. Then some of them they give total evidence in there. For sure, I will give you total about that.
Thank you.
You can get that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me ask first, you know, again, Ian Joseph Cao mentioned a moment ago the United States, this is Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's statement, that the U.S. will continue to urge Vietnam to strengthen its commitment to human rights. I've been in Congress now 30 years, and both Mr. Wolf and I, who both got elected in 1980, have made human rights and humanitarian issues the centerpiece of what we do. And frankly, statements like that, with all due respect to the Secretary of State, clearly lack sincerity. It is not about a broadly stated concept that people who are being tortured or being deported or being mistreated in some other way or having their religious freedom savagely taken away from them. It's about the deeds, and the deeds of countries like the United States to speak real truth to power, not in glib sentences that sound good, make for a great soundbite, end up in the AP or the AFP article that is then written. It looks like we were robustly raising human rights. And when I juxtapose her statement, which seemed to lack any kind of specificity, with the statement by Kurt Campbell as reported by AFP, Assistant Secretary for East Asian Affairs, Kurt Campbell said, "As I look at all the friends in Southeast Asia, I think we have the greatest prospects in the future with Vietnam." Now, why anybody in Hanoi would be worried about the United States taking Vietnam to task on human rights when that kind of flowery flattery, the idea that we are merged, joined at the hip, that we have common ground, if you will, in terms of our futures, when the Vietnamese human rights record is absolutely appalling in virtually every aspect of it, especially in the area of religious freedom. I think it's telling that it didn't happen until June, and the ratification still hasn't happened. But the International Religious Freedom prescribes an ambassador at large to deal with religious freedom. We went well over a year into this administration without that person being picked, and that person still is not at the helm of that religious freedom office. It's a revelation of priorities. And so with great disappointment, I raised the fact that, and we had invited, this commission wanted to hear from the administration and has been, unfortunately, again, been blocked by sending no representative to appear at the witness table to not just give an accounting, but to give insight as to what it is this administration is doing with regards to religious freedom in Vietnam. We think very little, and I think the record shows it. It should have been a no-brainer to reimpose country of particular status of concern, I should say, CPC, on Vietnam, given its appalling backtracking since it got the bilateral agreement and ascension into WTO. John Hanford, our former ambassador at large for religious freedom, felt that he had, quote, deliverables that the Vietnamese government was intent on providing, including no more forced renunciations of faith, that a new era was beginning in Vietnam. He, I think, was extremely well-meaning, but very naive, because as soon as the Vietnamese government, the economic benefits, there was a snapback to the old and even enhanced persecution of political and religious adherents. We look at the Block 8406. That great human rights manifesto has become a list of people that the Vietnamese government now hunts down, harasses, incarcerates, and tortures. So, if anything, we should have learned the lesson that this is a country that is going in the wrong direction. So, any of you who might want to comment on the administration, particularly Mr. Kumar or Mr. Vandermeer, I'm very troubled by Kurt Campbell's statement that looks like solidarity together. We're best of friends. Well, best friends don't let friends commit human rights abuses. And Vietnam is now a nation that has gotten demonstrably worse. And this whole episode of a Catholic diocese just south of Da Nang being mistreated in such a death to at least 3 people, an unborn child and 2 individuals, and perhaps many, many more. You noted, Mr. Nguyen, in talking about your brother, about the stripping of women and the use of a shotgun. You know, wearing a uniform, police or military, ought to be a sign of respect. Instead, this is about perversion as well as heinous torture. So so they're wearing the uniform, this anti-riot group, whoever it is that is perpetrating these crimes against humanity, they're wearing their uniform with shame. And I hope the Vietnamese government takes note of that, because at least some of us, and I hope a clear majority of us in Congress, both sides of the aisle, Democrat and Republican, recognize that. Let me ask a couple of questions. You might want to respond to Kurt Campbell's statement and the Secretary's. My wife found an old video that was on C-SPAN just the other day, C-SPAN's archive, and she pulled it up and showed it to me, and I hadn't seen it, never saw it because I actually gave it. It was a press conference over at the house in the 3rd floor where there's a press gallery. It was on May 26, 1994. Late in the day, on a Friday, when every member of Congress, except for me, I was a little late getting back to my district that day, had already left, the Clinton administration delinked human rights from most favored nation status. They did it so that there would be no reaction. It was a shameless act that was taken by that administration. And I went back and I watched it. It was about 6 minutes long, and everything, frankly, that I said, Mr. Wolf was saying the exact same thing, as would David Bonnier, who was then the whip for the Democrat Party. All of the people who cared about human rights in China, this isn't Vietnam, but it's China, were saying that by delinking trade with human rights, we would see more of the worst. There would be a deterioration. Everything we said at that press conference, and others have said, has happened with regards to China. The same is now happening with Vietnam. They got the economic benefit. It is right back to the same old bad old ways of torturing people, torturing them to death, and obviously cracking down on religion. I would ask you too, maybe Mr. Vandermeer, you might want to speak to this, but you know, at the United Nations, everybody is all nice to each other, and I guess diplomacy is important. But at the Universal Periodic Review of Vietnam, which was done well over a year ago, Vietnam, the recommendations including enhanced cooperation with UN special procedures and to re-engage with a special rapporteur on freedom of religion. The last time that happened was back in 1998. Our resolution that Mr. Wolf, Mr. Ein Joseph Cao, and I have introduced calls for a special rapporteur on religious freedom. We ask that Manfred Noack, the special rapporteur on torture, be invited into Vietnam to investigate, to provide a report about what is going on. And I'm wondering what your feelings are. It is the operative language of our resolution, calling on the UN, calling on the President of the United States and Secretary Clinton to call on Vietnam to appoint those, or the UN to appoint those 2 special rapporteurs, and then another one that would look generally at the situation. What would be your feelings on that?
To have a special rapporteur for Vietnam from the Human Rights Council. Also, let me expand a little bit. I certainly agree with you that words need to be backed up by strong actions, and I think that we still do have economic incentives or leverage with Vietnam. They still want to have increased relationships with the United States and for security arrangements and other issues. I was there with Speaker Hastert in 2006, and I think the Vietnamese people want to have a strong relationship with the United States. And I think those are leverage points that the United States government can use. The USERF did have recommendations in our chapter on this, which I'll put in for the record, but basically enforcing laws or that outlaw forced renunciations of faith and establish specific penalties in the Vietnamese criminal code for anyone who carries out such practices, and the far-reaching national security provisions in Article 88 or Article 258 of the criminal code, which have resulted in the detention of advocates for religious freedom and related human rights, such as the freedoms of speech, association, and assembly. Revise or repeal ordinances and decrees that limit the freedom of expression, assembly, or association, including new regulations banning peaceful public protests of property disputes. Those are in our recommendation on the Vietnam chapter.
Commission's consistency in not being swayed by political considerations. It is all about promoting religious freedom, doing it in the most efficacious manner. So I want to thank the Commission, Ted. I want to thank you and your colleagues on the Commission for, I mean, when Mr. Wolf put that into his legislation back in 1998, it is precisely because we had concerns that the State Department office might find itself at times